So this is very, very cool stuff. Awesome. So, yeah, what I was saying before about the pandemic and doing a lot more like recording and streaming stuff at home, it's taught me a lot about, just kind of adapting as a musician and just, I did like kid songs for my little cousin that I just sent out to my little baby cousin, because my first cousin just had a kid about a year and a half ago. So I finally sent the music over, which is really cute. And it's important to just to have, I don't know, it's important to really not only adapt and really just try to learn more about like electronic music and things like that. But I thought it was important to give those songs to my little cousin as well, to feel, a sense of happiness during this whole thing. But yeah, and also it was a little bit easier in a way, because like as mentioned before, I'm what's considered neurodivergent. So like under that umbrella would be somebody who may be like on the spectrum, or someone who's ADHD or OCD, Tourette's, like any sort of way that that the brain works differently, or that the behaviors along with that work differently. And I definitely fall under that umbrella. So for me, and I didn't really know that I was really, or I didn't realize that I was on the spectrum until like maybe a few years ago. And like people are like, oh, like it really doesn't seem like you are. It's like, well, just because you know one person who's on the spectrum only means like one person on the spectrum. It doesn't go right. It doesn't go with everyone, and it doesn't, it's not a one size fits all sort of thing. But but I've known that I've been ADHD forever. So that's nothing new. But with that whole thing, like during the pandemic, like sometimes, like a lot of the time, it's really great being alone. Like, sometimes, like especially when, like for me, like being on the spectrum, like having people like that I don't know be like in very close proximity to me makes me feel really uncomfortable. Or I don't know, like the whole like 6 foot difference thing, to me, I love it. I want it to be around forever. I know other people don't, but like when I'm in the supermarket and people are like really far away from me, I think it's wonderful. It makes it a much more pleasant experience. But yeah, I wanted to connect that more with music. I find that doing a lot of like the recording and hopefully performing with like a big band soon. It's, for me, it's a really great way to kind of express myself in a way that I wouldn't normally express myself. And to also, like with the stuff that I'm going to be writing too, to kind of talk about my experience. And because when you say that you're like on the spectrum or ADHD or whatever, like people get like a little turned off by that. And I don't want it to be like that. I want people to be aware of the fact that, like, you can think and act differently, but that doesn't mean that we're like lesser in any way, and or that maybe somebody else that's like me, like more or less, would be like, oh, well, she's doing all this music and stuff, and she is really relating to me. Maybe I can do something like that, and I think it's really important. Like I'm, when we were in the AmeriCorps, doing the things with relationships and things like that, that was really important to me. Like mental health is everything. It really just cuts into everything. And
it really does.
And
Fortunately, you live in society like this. It's like the bread and butter of
yeah,
sanity.
oh my God, absolutely. Yes. It's the bread and butter. And also, I mean, at least in my opinion, I don't know about anybody else, but our society isn't built to be happy or to make us strive to be the best that we can be.
Right,
You know what I
right.
mean? Especially for people that are different.
Yeah,
And, it's almost like, and, I'm not trying to make excuses or anything, but it just makes it harder,
yeah,
unless if we really try to be like, no, this really needs to change, and we really make some sort of noise or havoc about it,
right,
then
right.
it's going to change,
Yeah,
and
you got to
mental
get in their
health.
faces, get loud,
Get loud, you got it.
disturb the peace.
Disturb peace, except for this guy. I want him to be peaceful. I want him to be peaceful. But no, if I can do that, with pen and paper and my microphone, then so be it. That's it's important to me, to have other people feel that they can have a voice as well.
Yeah,
And for years I didn't, when I was younger, I thought whatever I would say I would get in trouble for. And for years I was just like very silent, and I tried to just step out of the way and not really um try to cause anything different, because I always got into trouble with what I said. But now I don't care anymore. But yeah, that's kind of what's going on with
do
me.
you
But
think that they're doing well? The medical science is doing justice for people with HDHD.
um I think with ADHD, definitely. I think a lot more people have it, and you know, and it's a choice. Although with some people that have ADHD, or parents of kids that have ADHD, and it's fine. They think they're good with, what they're doing for their kid, but it may not be the best for them. Like, as a
Mm.
teacher, like, I see kids, like, I'm look, I can't diagnose or anything like that. I don't claim to
Mm.
be a medical doctor in any way, but tell that I can tell when somebody else has ADHD and things like that, because I kind of see a reflection of my younger self in them, in a
Okay.
way. So, sometimes the kids are medicated, sometimes they're not. And some of the parents are very supportive of them, and some parents aren't really well aware of it. But I think the research that's out there, especially like some of the more like scholarly articles, I think are doing like a little bit more justice. Obviously, more work needs to be done,
Right.
and at least in like the acceptance aspect, especially with autism. Like, that one, for some reason, is still like really controversial, but or there are some articles that say to like treat autism, or to prevent all these behaviors, when really, like, everybody who is autistic is different, and it's not like a burden. It's not a burden on the parent. It's not. And some have more needs than others, but it's not like a disease that you want to cure. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And I think that aspect absolutely needs to go away,
Right.
because, like, you know what I mean, like, other people that are like me, we're not a disease. Um we're not something that we just need to change, right?
Right.
And there's
Right.
still some sort of, I don't know, there's a stigma, and people still believe that, like, vaccines like cause autism. To me, I mean,
Yeah,
obviously
I've
that.
heard someone say that, and I thought that that was just outdated, like belief, but it's not.
Yeah, and it should be outdated because it's been debunked,
Yeah.
and not only has it been debunked, but it's also saying, like, you'd rather have your child potentially die from a disease that you would be getting a vaccine from, than them having autism. Like, that's messed up.
Yeah, that's
Like,
crazy.
that's just like, that's so messed up. And and if that were the case that, vaccines cause autism, I think there'd be a heck of a lot more people that are autistic.
Oh
Like
yeah,
there
I
would be
agree.
like so many more people that would be,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Well,
it's that in that sort of respect. It's just there needs to be a lot more work. I think like medically, I think it's always changing because there are a lot more people now that are being diagnosed as autistic
mhm.
or as ADHD. So I think they're making strides in the fact of trying to make people that they're diagnosing and the parents of people that they're diagnosing more aware of their behaviors and the way that they think, and try to, build acceptance for themselves. But the whole stigma around just the whole stigma around it is just it's really messed up. And I remember too, like if we're gonna go really deep, I
Mhm.
remember when the Sandy Hook shooting happened.
Oh
And
man. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I remember when that happened and they were saying like the shooter was autistic, and there were like a lot of parents and people like online that were really afraid of autism, right? Because they
Mhm.
thought like there was like psychotic features and like, oh, like if my kid is autistic, they're gonna like have dangerous tendencies. No,
I
so
didn't know
there's
that
that
he
whole,
was autistic.
yeah, he had like Asperger's. And it's really wild, but that doesn't equate, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't
Right.
equate to that. And there was a
Right.
lot of fear surrounding it.
Right.
And like some of the things that I was seeing like online, like sometimes the internet can just really physically make you sick,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
it was, yeah. And I think more of what has to happen, I think like medically, like things are changing, and like doctors, at least in my experience, like me being, white, my experience is going to be different from someone, who is, or someone who's a person of color, and they go into, try to get a diagnosis is going to be much different. And I know that, right?
Right.
So, but with my experience, you know, at least with the doctors that I've seen, and things like that, you have to find the right one, first of all. Like you can't just, choose one, but um, or at least go with the first one that comes your way. But they're starting to listen a lot more because with all of the wealth of information on the internet, and
Mm-hmm.
like people are trying to self diagnose themselves, or like they're like, well, I found this online and this is what this says, to a
Right. Right.
doctor, you know what I mean? Like they're starting to listen a lot more, at least in that sort of respect. So I find that to be really cool. But there's still some doctors that haven't really read up on like new things, and like are still like very much stuck in what was like 20 years ago, maybe, or like
Yeah.
even
My,
30 years ago.
I
You
tried
know,
to get a marijuana card, and my doctor was like, "I know nothing about that."
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's wild. Yeah, and there's still, especially in our society, like I said, there's still a lot of strives that need to happen. And like also for like people with disabilities too, like they may have like hidden disabilities, and to get more rights in that sort of respect, especially like employment rights, because
Mhm.
even though you may not look like you have a disability, or you may not look like you need a handicap sticker on your car, for example, right? Like there's still because because some people can just like turn you away,
Excuse me.
you know there needs to be more done in that sort of respect, because there are still people out there that are very disrespectful to people
Right.
that have a disability. It's awful.
Right.
Like yeah.
Law enforcement, for example, I was talking with Kiana yesterday about mental health. Kiana is a mental health activist as well, and they are also they have stories about how, you know, the mental health program is just like so white and capitalistically flawed.
Yeah,
The lack of services um, that they give, and also with homelessness and stuff like that. And like
yeah,
I, I just feel like if we can get a type of like first responder program that can knows how to handle instead of sending somebody with a gun, that can
yeah.
be like a first step to like help people with mental illness. and
I think
and
that,
also
yeah,
like think about what is actually mental illness, like what you said with autism and stuff. Is like, do you really want to like make that deem being like a negative thing when it's really not? It's just is somebody's. There's people that run businesses that have autism. There's people
right.
that are like functioning. I think I have a few friends that are autistic as well too. Like,
Yeah,
so I don't see it ever as something that is like, oh, something's wrong with you. It's like, no, it just
right.
makes you special and different, honestly.
Yeah, yeah. And there are definitely like, strengths and weaknesses, but but yeah, with mental health, I really like what you said about that with law enforcement. Like they were, and with police reform, or like not reform, but like police defunding would be
Hmm.
like maybe the funding, like there could be like a separate program in the police force where like there are like social workers,
Yeah,
that could come along, or like things like that. Like I'm all for that. Like that's awesome. And yeah, especially like when I hear stories of like people of color that are autistic, and like there was one story, I should remember his name, but there was one that was just like so heartbreaking,
Elijah McClain.
about a boy. I'm sorry?
Elijah McClain.
Yes, yes. And he was autistic, and he like played the violin, and he was like very sensitive, and like just like the way they handled that, I thought like that broke my heart, because of all
Yeah,
the sensory things that he had, and just how
yeah.
freaked out he was, and just like that broke my heart.
There's a
And
lot
it's
more to that story as well. Um,
oh
yeah.
yeah.
Um, real quick. So the Socialist Party that I'm a part of, the PSL,
Hmm.
we have a chapter almost in every state, but in Elijah McClain, for instance, they were one of the coalition first responder activists to like go out and lead uh, a lot of like good um, demonstrations to get the police attention, and it ended up getting like national coverage to the point that the cops literally like single-handedly spotted like four individuals that were part of the party,
Hmm.
and literally arrested them. They had SWAT cars coming out of one guy's house. They literally took one comrade and left her car there, and no one knew where she was at for like a day, and they found her car, and it was like, oh wait, she's in jail. It was crazy. It was like a witch hunt.
Oh my
um
God.
and they almost they I know the case now, they're getting some charges dropped, but they were looking at 40 to 50 years in prison. um yeah, they were about to like slap the slap the book on them, and I'm glad that they're better from that. But these are like mostly people of color that they went after as well
Yeah,
too, so it's just like they don't even want to acknowledge that they murdered a autistic boy that deserved better than what the fuck they gave him. And that just shows like a
yeah,
reflection of how the police department of America handles people with mental health issues, and why a lot of people don't are afraid for welfare checks.
yeah,
Um, all these things that people will call the cops for, thinking that they're going to help them, but no, you're basically like sending an assassin. And I don't want to say
yeah,
that, but that's what it is. You're sending
yeah.
an assassin.
Yeah, and the police academy was created in the South,
Yeah,
to catch slaves. Like
yeah,
that was the job, and in the North was to control immigrants.
yeah. Yep, and union
That's the
busting too.
start.
Yep.
Yeah. So and in my opinion, it's morphed into pretty much the same thing. Like it hasn't really steered too far from how it started.
Yeah.
And there needs to be a lot of change in that.
Yeah.
And yeah, just the way that mental health, like mental illness and mental health is treated, like they think, oh, well, you're just like that, you're on your own. You know what I mean? And people are just can be really callous,
Right.
and they just don't understand,
Right.
or like, and kind of going off subject a little bit, but with, and I read a lot. Like I love to read. I like reading books. I like reading articles. I like reading pretty much everything.
Hmm.
Um, and I like reading a lot more now that I know like the type of like learning differences that I have. Because when I was younger, I would just like look at the words and I wouldn't understand what it was saying. But now, like, I know how, like, I have like a whole rhythm to it and things like that.
Hmm.
But from what I've been reading on, like, on some autistic adults, like, it's very common for some autistic adults to be like non-binary or gender fluid, um, because of themselves, or at least myself too, feeling
Hmm.
a lot different from your peers that,
Hmm.
that match their gender with their sex, right? Like
Right.
I always felt really different when I was younger. I knew I wasn't like other, cisgendered girls in my grade, and not even like some of the boys, you know what I mean? When I was younger, like girls and boys thought I had cooties, like I remember in elementary school, they're just like, "Yeah, you have cooties." I'm like, "Why are girls saying that I have cooties? Like, this is weird." Like I thought it was like the opposite gender, but yeah, it's pretty common, and I agree that it's common because like, I don't want to say behaviors, but some of like our tics and some of like the way we interact and the way we think of ourselves are very different from the sex that we're assigned.
Right.
Um, and like some of the behaviors, and well, now I'm saying behaviors, but like some of the behaviors, because for me, gender is more of like how we connect, like the way we feel inside of our own bodies and how we connect that to what society says about gender, and
Right.
if we match that or not. And I didn't know until like, I don't know, like when the whole trans non-binary thing really became much more prominent, that was even an option. Like I had no idea, because I was just so like, not only like really confused, but it felt weird, like even dating, because I didn't feel like, I was getting um, some of the respect that I deserved, quite frankly, not just because of like gender, but other
Hmm.
issues. Um, but like there's especially with like cisgender, like straight men, like there's like a notion of like, oh, I want like, not all of them, but like, oh, I want like my partner to be like really feminine, or like really like stick to like some of those roles, like
Right.
those like feminine roles.
Right.
And like I don't fit that. Like
Mm.
I never did. I probably never will, right?
Oh yeah.
But yeah,
And you
but
shouldn't have to. Like fuck
no,
patriarchy.
yeah, I'm yes, I am always down with that. Like, and if somebody that I'm with wants to join me and tear that down, and they don't care that they're dating somebody who's like gender fluid and non-binary,
Yep.
bravo.
Hell yeah. I
Yeah,
always
and
encourage people so more to like speak up, piss them off, because they just gonna get
yeah,
mad and triggered, and they're gonna mind their business. If they don't, then they'll get punched in the face. But there's
yeah,
options that they can have. There's
yeah,
always options.
yeah, and honestly, yeah, it's like seriously, it's like mind your business, like but yeah, like more people really do need to speak up about it, and like when and with abuse, that can, and I've never had like this type of abuse, like in terms of like non-binary and things like that, but that can
Mhm.
happen because you may not be following like a standard or like an expectation that your partner wants, and they lash out on you because of that, like in some sort of way. You know what I mean?
That's not cool at all.
No, it's awful. And you know, and
Uh-oh.
and it's really it's awful. I haven't had that experience, like in terms of like in that aspect.
Right.
But it can happen,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not right. And now that I'm like much more confident in like, my identity, I can upfront be like, look, like this is who I am, like take it or leave it. Like if this is what you
Yeah.
want, cool. If not, I'll find somebody else. Like
Yeah.
that's, it's not a big deal to me anymore. And it's not as confusing, right?
Yeah.
It's
And
not
you're older than me, right? You have me by like a few years, right? Like
yeah,
maybe
yep, I turned 33 almost a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, and yeah, for a long time, and especially like when I was growing up too, like in the early 2000s, like late 90s, like early 2000s, like there's this like really big wave of like this like hyper
yeah,
heterosexuality. There's a
yeah,
huge movement of that, and it was very, even for me then, like it was really confusing, having like all these like expectations, like you had to be like submissive and sexy as female, you know what I mean, like all the stuff, or you had to be a certain size,
hmm
where like if like beauty was rail thin,
yeah.
and and
Starve yourself.
yeah, and this generation now, and I'm about body positivity as well, or like body acceptance, um which is a big part of it too, because with like the gender roles and everything, and coming out as non-binary, like it's really helped with body acceptance too, and body positivity, because like you you don't have that type of expectation anymore,
Yeah.
and you are much more kind to your own body, and you see it as your own, and not like somebody else's, or like society's body. It's your
Mm.
own, and that's a very powerful thing. And I don't have to like eat certain things, or like look a certain way, and
Yeah.
growing up where it was like that hyper heterosexuality, and where like everybody in the magazines were like rail thin, that can really
hmm
mess somebody's mental health for sure.
Yeah. Like,
Um,
let's break this down because I feel like, I mean, well, what's the big deal here now that's happening in this generation is the pushback with the Democrats and the Republicans, and yes, it's both of them. I swear to God, somebody try to fucking just
it is
start
both
saying
of them.
goddamn Republicans. I'm going to take this mic and shove it up your ass because it's both of them. They need to stop being nice to these blue motherfuckers. All right, you got to
Yeah,
stop it. When Manchin start fucking voting for shit that the Republicans want, nobody says nothing. But as soon as Ted Cruz or some other Zodiac killer alliance motherfucker starts voting for the motherfuckers,
yeah,
everybody's all up on them and shit, like Trump and shit like that. But y'all don't say shit about fucking Biden. You disrespect the LGBTQ people and saying they're going to do the right thing for them, but having the police still whoop our asses. But anyway,
yeah.
that was just a quick rant.
There you go. No, I'm all about it.
That was just a quick rant. But what I was saying is like the kids, um, yeah, fuck Biden. The kids are like dealing with um right now, trying to like this like trans kids are being attacked on a high level,
Yeah,
and and these are people that they just really still keep that patriarchy mindset, they keep that homophobic, that transphobic mindset embedded in them, and they don't want to accept logic. They don't want to talk about how hormones and testosterone literally changes your body,
yeah,
and and they're like, oh well, that's just that trans girl is going to go and dominate the league. They don't even know the research of how there's multiple trans athletes. Oh, my camera's effing up today.
it's okay.
There's multiple trans athletes that are not even like really popular in the league, and there's trans athletes that are in the closet. You don't even know they're trans,
Right.
and they're not dominating in the league. You're only seeing the ones that are dominating, and it's few. Just like the trans men that are in profession, for instance, let's start with power and power. There's trans men that are in professional fighting, just like how there's trans women in professional fighting as well too, and
Yeah.
non-binary people as well. They and a lot of them don't say or tell people that they're trans. You never
Right.
know. There was a UFC fighter. I can't think of her name. That people found out were trans, and she was getting her ass whipped the whole time.
Yeah.
But it's like, bro, like this is just transphobia. You're just sitting here like, oh well, they're genetically modified. I'm like, you don't know anything. You don't know how it goes. There's women that don't even take any testosterone, but has testosterone levels like cisgender women, and they can
Right.
whoop your ass. I got my ass beat, but my sister, I don't even know what kind of levels she has more. And like she's like a little twig, but
Yeah.
it's like, bro, like they're and they only attacking trans women. They're not attacking trans men. They're not, and
Right.
that's just completely biased. And I mean, the trans men themselves are also being attacked as well too because of how the
Right.
legislation and all that stuff is going. But it's like you're blocking
Yeah.
healthcare now. You're trying to get healthcare blocked. And how the fuck do we live in a country where people are literally quiet while health access to healthcare again and again is being taken away from queer and gender non-conforming, gender fluid individuals and
Yeah.
cisgender women? It's always crickets, crickets,
Always.
and they didn't understand that those two fights coexist together. If we can't have Planned Parenthood, for instance, that helps out not only just women but helps out everybody, you're going to kill a lot of people. A
Yeah.
lot of people are going to die, and it's not even just about abortion, because yes, trans people get pregnant too, but they
Right.
don't even. It's not even just abortion. It's not even that.
No,
They have
it's
other
everything.
health benefits that they give out. You know, they can screen you for breast cancer. A lot of places it's hard to get
Yeah.
that. Like, it's just it's so stupid because
I know.
people are sitting here taking these damn transphobic ideas and then they get mad when they're saying I'm not transphobic. When you're standing for this one thing, you're supporting everything else that connects. Because after they're done coming after you, after they're done coming after the blacks, they're gonna go after the fucking Roman people, Roma people. After they're done with the Roma people, they're gonna go after all the queer people. After they go after the queer people, they go after the Mexicans. And then now they're done with the Mexicans. Like, oh, who else we don't like? Uh, you know what? I don't like how the Indian people are getting up shops over there. Let's go after them too. That it all connects. You are living in a fascist society.
Yeah. No, it's all based off of fear, and it's all based off of to our society really just doesn't like femininity or women. That's really what
Yeah.
it comes down to. And it's scary, and to not have, mental health access, especially to like especially to the queer community, because it's hard to find a therapist that's like really um that's really sensitive to that. And I'm very, very lucky that I have a psychiatrist that made me realize that I was non-binary. And he's like boomer age, right?
Mm,
So he's like, oh, so you don't. So he's very straightforward, and he was like, oh, so you're non-binary. I was like, oh, I guess I am. He's like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. You really just have to go, with how you feel. Or like when
mhm,
I said like, oh, I like this person, or I'm attracted to this person. And he said to me something really interesting. He said, it's not wrong only if you feel that it's wrong. And I took that to heart.
mm,
And when I found out that I was like non-binary, he was like, oh, have you told anybody else? I was like, well, I didn't really realize it, so I guess not. And like he was
mm.
actually like really like proud of me, which is cool, and there's some hope out there. But
Yeah, and
I
it's
but
good
I
that
just
you're a teacher too, because that can help out a lot of kids that are trying to figure out their gender identities and their sexualities.
absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, and that's important too. I'm not, and especially like during the pandemic, a lot of kids are just, I think, I give them a lot of credit. They are probably some of the most resilient humans right now. They're going through school. They went through schooling online, and
Mhm.
they barely complained about it, and it's like, it's amazing, and they know so much, like all this information is at their disposal. You know what I mean? And like, some of it may not be correct, of course, um, but all this information is in front of them. So like, they're very aware,
Yeah.
they're aware of everything that's going on. And like, even when I go into a Zoom meeting, like, and I put up it's funny, I put like next to it, like I put they, she on here, but like on Zoom, I go any pronoun. Like, I don't care what pronoun you give me, right?
Mhm.
And like, they may give like a little smirk or something, like a happy smirk, not like a joking
Mhm.
smirk. I don't think that's the right word,
Mhm.
but they don't care, like, and to me, like, and these are kids like as young as like 7, 8 years old,
Yeah.
so it's important for them to see that someone like me can still live, a meaningful life and still be very comfortable enough with themselves. And hopefully that can translate to them, like, hey, like, if this person is really happy, or if this person is very comfortable, then like I can be comfortable with who I am too,
Right.
and it's pronouns are important.
Yeah.
They are. And they really are. It it can save a life. It really
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
And that it's and
And
I'm
our
glad that I
language
gave
is
it.
just like not. I like the English. The English language is a little more accepting of when it comes to pronouns,
Yeah.
but with Spanish, like I was talking about this on Mother's Day with my partner's older sister about like how, like for instance, Spanish, they don't really have like gender neutral language.
Right.
It's not natural to them, and it just shows you about how everything connects. Like I was saying, the colonialism, the patriarchy within that language is there on purpose
Yeah.
to make you like automatically have to conform to what is acceptable within their hierarchy. So if there's no language, like how with indigenous people we had 7 different genders, and I think there was more.
Right.
If there's no language that accommodates those genders, then it's automatically oppression,
Yeah.
because people
It's
are
by
like, oh
design.
well, how I'm going to call you or something like that. It's just no, it's just like
Like,
people get mad for
what?
saying they, and I'm just like, bro, come on, like, like
It's
now
like
you just
you have
think
no
about it.
problem giving a pronoun to like your automobile. Like, why would
Yes,
you like have a problem? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's so wild to me. Like, oh, you're saying she is a car. It's like,
yes. I'm not gonna lie.
what?
I have taken a tribute to that. I
That's
play Grand
okay.
Theft Auto, and I have mad different cars, and I name them, and I give them pronouns. Like
I
I do
love it.
that. Yes, I do
No,
that.
that's okay. But my point is though, like, if you can give a pronoun to a car, or
Right.
like their whatever, or I'm not like comparing like things with people. That's not what I'm saying. But if you can
Mhm.
like give like their or whatever, or like she, he to like a car, for example, you can do that to a person. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
just because it doesn't fit like what you see. You know what
Right.
I mean? It's like, it's, I don't know. I don't think it's a difficult concept, but everybody's different. you know.
Yeah. It tells whether or not these people are your friends or not. Because if they can't respect your life, they can't respect your identity, they can't respect who you are,
No.
then don't be around them because they're
Yeah,
just
you
gonna
don't need
be
that type of
toxic.
negative energy in your life.
Yeah,
Kick them out.
exactly.
Kick them to the curb.
Deuces,
And
bye, Felicia.
yeah, bye Felicia is right. Yeah, Ice Cube had it right. you know, but but yeah, it's but yeah, kind of going back before to like neurodivergence and gender identity. In my opinion, like it's somewhat goes like I don't want to say it goes hand in hand, but
Mm,
it is common just because of um all of the idiots like all the idiosyncrasies or like all of like the behaviors that we may present um and it it makes sense. Like once I found that out, it made a lot of sense. And this is going to sound controversial too, but like for those people that are neurodivergent or that are considered under that umbrella, a lot of them are self-diagnosed. And I know that sounds crazy because it's like, oh, you need to go to like a professional, but not every single professional is going to be up to date on that. And they're not going to be up to date on the most recent findings, of like being ADHD or autistic or Tourette's or
mm-hmm,
whatever it may be. Um, and and honestly, like if you feel like you have a lot of, if not most or everything that would be like considered on a checklist, you probably are,
mm,
because if you didn't feel that way, or if you had like a sort of an inkling, you probably don't. You know,
mm-hmm,
you know what I mean?
mm-hmm,
Like you can connect the two really well. And that's kind of what happened to me. Like when I took like a special education class and I was reading, this is how I first kind of found out. And I was reading in a book of like some things that are considered like they don't divide levels of autism anymore. They just do it as like the autism spectrum disorder. Like they took out in the DSM-5, they took out Asperger's and things like that, and they just use it as autism spectrum disorder now.
mm. Okay.
Um, and but this textbook wasn't up to speed on that, but like with some of like the things that were a little bit milder, um, and I do that in little funny air quotes, but that are like on the milder side. And when I was reading that and like reading like a lot about the learning things, and I was like, wait a minute, I feel like I'm like reading a biography about myself right now. Like this is weird. I never
Mm,
considered this. You know what I mean? And then when I was talking to some like, like a therapist or like professionals and things like that, like they were like, yeah, like I could tell a little bit of it, but there's also that sense of like imposter syndrome. I mean, as an artist, you feel like you're an imposter to begin with anyway. I feel like I'm an
yeah.
imposter all the time. But
Yeah.
but you feel like an imposter almost. It's like, well, I don't fit that stereotype or whatever. But so it was hard at first, but then it's like, you know, it is what it is. And I try to connect that with my music a lot too. I'm
Mm,
starting to write a lot more things about like falling for more than just like a boy or a girl,
mm-hmm,
or referring to myself as they, like in a song that I have. It's like, I don't care if you're a boy, non, or a girl. That's like a lyric that I have in there just to make it.
mm.
It's like subtle, but like it's still there because I still
Right.
want to express, who I am and kind of normalize it. And it's in this like little pop tune, you know?
Yeah.
Um, yeah. But yeah, it's all like kind of interconnected in that way. And self diagnosis to me is valid. Um, just because like I said, if you know,
Mm,
right? If you really connect to it in some way, it's like, oh, okay. It's not just like, social awkwardness or like
mm-hmm,
depression or like anything like that. It's like a whole mixture of things. Like, yes, I may be okay with eye contact when I'm listening to somebody, but I may look, the other way, like just like slightly towards another place. I almost never look at somebody in the eye when I'm talking to them, but I feel like most people don't. But some of the things that I may do, like at home, like my executive functioning may be really off, and I've noticed that, especially during the pandemic, that was really hard. Um,
yeah.
yeah, really difficult, and how I interact with some people, um, how I can or cannot relate to how somebody is feeling, like all those things, or like some of the tics that I have too,
Hmm.
like um like hand rubbing, or like sometimes I might get like a tweak in my neck and it actually like really hurts. And I've been getting that a lot more, or like when I feel unsure about something, I may like stutter. I didn't do
Hmm.
that this time, which is very cool. I did a little bit at the beginning, but the only time I don't really feel that is when I'm performing, like when I'm singing or when I'm playing the piano. That's really the only time that I don't feel that sense of like awkwardness, or like feel a sense of um I don't know, like I feel a sense of order, in my
Yeah.
life, and I don't have the twitches in my neck, or twitches in my shoulders or body or anything like that, because I get certain tics, and I don't feel any of that. It's just all like kind of flooded out, and music is just such a beautiful connector in that way.
Yeah.
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 Uh,
I love music.
yeah,
In all
right.
the
It's Yeah, I don't think I know too many people that don't. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
don't think I could be friends with them. Like I'd probably
Oh,
look at them like they had five heads, but
yeah.
but music is such a great not only communicator, but it involves everyone.
Yeah.
It involves everyone. And it doesn't matter who you are, you can get involved in music in some way. You can be a music appreciator, you know? Um
Hmm.
and luckily my parents were very supportive in music, because my mom started out as a music therapist. So she was always very supportive in the music that I was doing and still is. Um, but yeah, music just really helps with not only being comfortable with my identity and being comfortable with the fact, but I use a lot of what I have, a lot of my strengths that may come from being neurodivergent, and I pour that into it. And
Hmm.
it literally just it makes me feel unstoppable at this point. Like,
Right.
do I get the imposter syndrome from time to time? Absolutely. Every artist does. Every artist feels like
Yeah.
they're not good enough at some point.
Yeah.
You
Oh
know,
God,
um,
that's what I'm dealing with right now.
yeah.
That's what I'm dealing with right now. Pandemic has put me in such a rut,
Oh,
and like I just do. I did. We did a show um at the Bijou,
right,
I believe last a few weeks ago,
right,
and like I just felt a little disconnected with certain songs. Like I practiced them,
right,
but like the hits that I usually do,
right.
it's just I just didn't feel it. Didn't feel connected, and you
Yeah,
know, and it is sad when your bandmates like they notice and they're like, "Bro, you're good. Like, what's going on? Like, let's get
right.
you sharpened back up, man. Like, you got to get back into it, you know." And
Yeah.
it's for them just like, "Fuck, I think I let them down, but I'm gonna
It's
get it."
so hard. No, it's true. It's hard because, like, it's because you're like, then you think, like, oh, am I good enough to do this? When it's like, well, everybody has,
Yeah.
logically, it's like, well, everybody has a bad day. You know what I mean? We're not always going to be our best, but in our heads, we're just like, oh man, I'm like not good enough to do this, am I? You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
sometimes I feel that way more with piano than I do voice, although voice I feel like that sometimes too. But um, or like with songwriting, especially at the beginning, I was like, oh man, like I'm not doing anything like extraordinary. And then I
Right.
thought to myself, wait a minute, I don't have to. Everything
Yeah.
is inspired by something else. And as long as it's mine, that's what matters. But we always get into our own heads. We
Yeah, we
always
do.
try to strive for that sort of sense of perfection, or like what we have already ingrained in our heads. And but and it's very common to have imposter syndrome in art, for sure. And
Yeah.
but going back to the whole identity, And once I came out with that, I was much more comfortable with my music because it's like, I'm
Mhm.
displaying a part of myself, especially when I'm on stage. Like I had a gig with Gabby Whitney, I think like this past, like last week actually.
Yeah,
And
I
I was
saw that.
so,
I had to work.
yeah,
I'm always working when you're playing. I feel so bad. I've been trying to get
that's okay.
like to
I'm
distraction
trying to
gigs.
get, yeah, I'm trying to get more gigs like solo stuff doing or trying to get a band together to do more originals. So I'll probably have more dates open for that. But when I did that particular, I was so nervous because I was premiering songs that I had never
Hmm.
played out in public before. So I was really nervous and I was like, oh my God, like usually I do like covers for like people eating dinner. You know what I mean? Like this was very different. Like I was like on a higher, like a much bigger stage, and people are there to drink and watch me,
Hmm.
and but once I just kind of was like, you know what, this is what I'm writing about. Like, this is who I am. Do, I'm just gonna be me, and it went a lot better than I expected, you know.
Right.
But because like I wasn't trying to be somebody that I wasn't, quite frankly, or wasn't trying to like be like more marketable or like I don't know, feminine, like or male or whatever, and I just kind of went for it. I just felt much more in my element, which is really cool. And I want to inspire other people to be in their element as well once they, are comfortable with what they're doing and like who they are
Right.
and like are comfortable with the flaws that they have and that they know that they need to work on, and are aware of what they need to work on or are comfortable with the fact that they have flaws.
Hmm.
That is I think the ultimate thing to do to build confidence is to know that you have flaws and to be comfortable with those flaws. Um, you know, and to work on it.
I
But
think
that's
that's something now a lot of musicians have to work on a lot.
yeah.
We get too into our heads, and
Oh
that's
yeah.
never a good idea.
No.
Especially yeah, especially when you're stressed and stuff. I mean, like I get why a lot of people would complain about how certain artists would take 2 years or 3 years to drop music, and I'm just like, you don't want their product to be great. You just want them to
Yeah.
drop whatever the fuck they want to drop, and you're just like, "Ooh, I'm jamming." You're not gonna be jamming.
No. No. Like I'm not part of Sony Records where I have like a deadline,
Yeah,
in order to sell a million records. Like this is your own art. Art does
yeah.
not have a deadline. It takes time.
No,
And I
like I
tell
gotta
that,
go through some
yeah.
shit. That's the fucking right side. Like,
Yeah, no, that's the capitalist side of it too. It's like fucks up everything. But yeah, like I tell like some of my students, and a lot of my students are songwriters, they're like, oh, I want to write like the perfect song. And the best advice that I ever got um was like two things. Mentioned this before. One, everything is inspired by something else. Like if you're practicing a song, right? But then you tweak it, then you make a mistake. But then you go off of that mistake. And then you go
hmm.
off of that mistake again until it turns into something pretty different.
Right.
That's a really good exercise. You know, go with that flaw, go with that mistake and see what else you can create from that. Right.
Mhm.
That was one thing. That was cool. And another thing, which I think is the best, and you have to make shit art before you make good art. You can't just automatically make good art. You have to
Yeah.
make shit.
Yeah.
Like you have to make like hot steaming pile of dump art in order, you know what I mean? In order to make good art, because that's where you can learn from and that's where you can build from because it's not all like a finished product.
Right.
You know what I mean? But yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to put that sort of imagery in there, but you get
Yeah.
my point. Yeah.
You gotta force yourself to write, and then you'll get something out of it. But
Yeah.
don't record everything, or you
Yeah.
could record everything. Just don't show everything. because people
No.
will be like, "Hey, are you okay? Like, what's going on, man?" Like,
Yeah, like
come
you.
on,
It's like
take
I
your
can give
time.
you a number to call. You know, like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
yeah,
Like, just it, the struggle is beautiful. All my young artists out there, it's beautiful.
it's
You know,
wonderful.
my ass literally didn't have any music for a good like fucking 5 years. I didn't like write songs, didn't play
Right.
any instrument. Like before that, I was trying so hard, and then that whole shit happened with Dave. You remember Dave? And I was like, I fucking hate my life, and I didn't want any part of it again. But I felt so unhappy
Right.
just seeing everybody else do shit, and you've been doing it nonstop. And
Thank
I'm
you.
just like, man, fucking Chris and Liz and everybody's just fucking doing it. Like, y'all
Yeah,
stop
and
me from doing it.
right, and you know, and you don't want to like. I mean, yes, there comes a time when you kind of need to be like spark a fire under your ass and just be like, okay, I gotta go. But you also don't want to force it when you're just not feeling it either.
Mhm.
Um, because for a while I didn't really have the confidence to really go out there and like do my own gigs and book my own good gigs until like 2019. And I've been teaching music for a long time,
Yeah.
you know, and even before teaching music, when I was in the AmeriCorps in 2011, like
Hmm.
2012, like I thought, oh, music isn't, you know, going to sustain me. Like I think it's ridiculous. And then one person that I was working with, I was working at a children's museum doing like food in the cafeteria, and the guy was like, well, if you want to teach music, just do it. And I was
Yeah.
like, you know what, you're right. Like, and that changed everything, because it's like he was
Whoosh.
just like, if you're, yeah, he said it very plainly. He's like, look, like if you want to teach music, like you got to start somewhere, just do it. And I
Do it.
was like, you know what, you're right. And I quit, and I emailed Fairfield School of Music from Craigslist, and then a friend told me about School of Rock,
Hmm.
and it all just kind of, you know, trickled down from there. And I found like, and with music too, you have to find the right people. You have to find the right support system. If I
Yeah.
didn't have the friends that I have in music, I don't know what would have happened. You know,
God.
it's support, and just being surrounded by like the right people, not just in terms of like where you want to be, but also like the right people in terms of like who you click with and whom you can support and find support from. It's
Right.
it's everything. You know, having that support system is just so important.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It really is. It
yeah.
really is. I can't. I'm trying to think of like scenarios when, like, what would I do without support groups? Honestly, like,
Yeah.
you need people. If people need people.
People need people. Like, yes, I love being alone from time to time, and I'm like, ugh, I don't want to be around people, you know, like
Hmm.
sometimes I thrive, you know, off of recharging myself by
Hmm.
myself. But
Hmm.
you know, we all need people that we can just, you know, relate to, and that, you know, that understand us, and that we understand, and that are just going to be accepting.
Right.
And you know, that takes a little while, and in music especially, that's like, because being female in, you know, in music is not easy.
Hmm.
I've literally had to fight like fight with people in order to be like, no, like I can actually do this. Or like, no, like let me do what I need to do, like, or
Hmm.
no, like I have the knowledge that I have, and I'm very confident in what I know, like
Hmm.
let me do what I need to do. Like, you don't need to explain to me how a microphone works. Like, I've been doing this for a long time, you know, but
These motherfuckers, really?
they think we're like Neanderthals, and we're just like, like, it's ridiculous. Or like trying to like explain like a seven chord to me. I'm like, bro, I've been teaching that for almost a decade. Like, what? Like, stop it.
Shut
Oh my
up.
God. It's unbelievable. And I look at them dead in the face. I'm like,
Mm.
I can't. I can't even. Mansplaining, man's the worst. But
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's humorous. It's just like you gotta look at this like you're you're kidding, right? Like this isn't real. Like,
Yeah, right.
oh my god.
It's real to them.
Or they're
They
like,
just assume.
or you like date somebody in the band, or like you just
Yeah,
like do little backup stuff, right? I'm like, no, I went to music school. Like I've been doing piano for over 25 years. Like, I'm not trying to be cocky here, but like you don't need to explain all of this stuff to me. Like I'm
yeah.
like pretty confident in what I do,
Get the fuck out of
but
here.
yeah, but it's okay to laugh about it because it's just like
Mhm,
mind-boggling that somebody would be like that.
mhm.
But you find people like that in the industry, you find people that are like that. You're just like, all right, bye. I don't need you. Go away.
Yep,
But
yep. And the industry is very weird, and like it's so exploitive, and
yeah,
it's
it
just
is.
there's a lot to be fixed. I really do think that there should be like some type of like artist union, like how they have like the SAG
Yes.
card for actors and stuff like that. Like even not even like, or I'm not talking about like the famous level. Of course, they should have some type of union as well too, because
Right.
you're only going to be popular but so long. Not everybody is the great Sarah fucking Bareilles or fucking
Yeah.
Snoop Dogg and shit like that. Not
Yeah.
everybody is those like legends and everything. So it's like you're going to need to like make sure you're taken care of, especially when they fuck up the royalties and all shit like that. And it's also for us working uh musicians too. It can segue into that, like basically get credits off of like what professional shows you have done, and based off of those credits you become a part of the union. And
Yes.
I think that is a conversation that needs to be had and shift. I mean, I could see like, I mean, Master P talked about it, but just the fact that people are now trying to fight for the royalties, even people that aren't like,
Yeah.
as big, or they, they had like one little hit, or they were with a record company and stuff, and they were like touring all the time, and they don't even have their royalties. It's like the fact that the fight for royalties is so popular right now just tells you
Yeah.
how the lack of like love, support, and financial growth and stuff that is not happening for artists. And you guys keep listening to our fucking music and shit.
Yeah. And it's like TLC. Yeah, it's like TLC when they were at the Grammys and they announced that they were broke and people were just like so surprised. But
Yeah,
like it's because the record companies, the big ones, they just take everything that you have. They don't care about the artist, they care about marketability. They care
yeah,
about their business. That's what the music business is.
yeah.
And when you treat people like a commodity,
Hmm.
that's what's that abuse of power is going to happen. And when you are unionized in that way, especially as an artist, you're not treated as much of a commodity.
Right,
You are treated more as like an equal almost,
right.
and like you're being taken care of, and that would be brilliant. That would be
Yeah.
great.
And people can't say this is possible. It's not. It is very possible because
Yes.
there's an actors union, and it's been
Yeah.
going on for decades now. And so if there could be an actors union, there could definitely be a fucking musicians union,
Absolutely.
artists union. It
Yeah.
could it can happen. And I mean, people freak out about unionizing, but I mean, everybody should be fucking unionizing at this point. Like, corporate
Yeah.
America's trash. Like,
Right. Or at least have a union that's going to be supportive and doesn't have like an agenda. You know what I
right,
mean? Or have like some sort of like ulterior motive.
right,
Because there are some unions that I have heard about where they do have and they're trash, like it's like, come on, like don't you're dealing with people's lives here. You can't have some
right.
sort of agenda for yourself. It's not
No.
right.
That's why I fucking hate
And
capitalism because
yeah,
they just get away with shit. They can fuck up the unions.
fucks up everything.
I mean, like in Cuba, like I think it's 97, somewhere 90 percentage. I want to make sure whenever I mention Cuba, that I got my shit right, because some people will freak out at the time.
Right.
They'll be like, "How dare you mention Cuba? Don't you notice people are starving?" Shut up. All right, listen. There's like 97%, some shit like that, of unions of the whole country. So like they they basically uh are leading the charge with unionizing, just like how
Yeah.
they're leading the charge with Cuban doctors. So I think if America was to just stop thinking like, oh, we can solve our own problems and look at other countries
Yeah.
and see how they conduct their unions and stuff like that, these corrupt unions will, be fucking like no more, and it'll be actually a fucking union, stuff
Yeah.
like that, because that's what I think. That's what anyone need. The NFL has a union, people. Like
I mean, really? And they
the
get away
NFL,
with literally murder.
right, right,
Like
right.
literally.
The police have a union, and I don't support their union. That's the only union I don't support.
Oh
And
shoot.
people have came at me about that, be like, "Oh wow, why are you talking shit about the police union?" Because they have too much fucking power. That's the issue. Why they get away with so much shit? Because they been giving all the power to get away with shit, and it's too late now. You literally have to like go into a battle of legislation if you really want to break their power down, because they have everything they need.
Yeah.
And that's a good example of capitalist unions that have too much power and don't have the people interest in mind. Just
Yeah.
so this sucks. Fucking sucks. And
Yeah.
speaking of that,
Everything capitalism touches turns to shit. But
sadly, sadly, someone's not going to agree with that sees this, but it is the
right.
truth. Sadly,
Sadly. Like when it gets really corrupt at least. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
for sure.
yeah. It does, and that shit needs to stop. And I don't know how it's going to stop, but it is what it is. Like,
Yeah.
for instance, like when you look at their training, they're going to fucking Israel now to learn how to be even more worse. Like the IDF is like shooting uh journalists, and they were shooting nurses.
Yeah.
And you see with the George Floyd riots, for instance, they're shooting at journalists and shooting at medics. Like
Yeah.
they're even tearing down medic camps that people established for the protesters. It's it's it, it's not
Yeah.
fixing anything. You're just making things
No.
worse.
No. And it's yeah, and the whole thing with Israel and Palestine, it's terrible,
Yeah,
it's just there's so much bloodshed,
yeah,
I mean, and yes, there's bloodshed on both sides, certainly, but there's more bloodshed where there is less military protection.
yeah.
And it's really sad. And I was saying to people, like, I'm siding with human life. I'm
Hmm.
not siding with government. I'm not siding with policy. I'm not going to play a game of Monopoly, right?
Yeah,
I am siding with human life, and that's what it comes down to.
right.
You know, um, and that was really sad. It was so sad. And like that's also because I grew up like as a Zionist, because in Ashkenazic Judaism, like in synagogues and stuff, in our prayer books, like um, we talk about the home of the land of Israel,
Hmm.
and a lot of the texts, for thousands of years have been talking about it too, but it still doesn't give a right to treat people like that. And we
Yeah.
have to, as Jews, we have to remember how we were treated for thousands of years.
Hmm.
We can't be doing that to other people. Like we have to, we as people have to remember how we were treated, right?
Right.
And because I'm very proud of my heritage, of my ethno-Jewish heritage. I'm very proud of it. And because I have a lot of pride in where I come from, I want the respect, for the Palestinian people. They deserve to live. They deserve, to have equal access. They
Right.
deserve peace. They deserve all of that. And,
Right.
and it's very like, and with like people who are, you know, who are Jewish, or Ashkenazic Jewish at least, like with like Sephardic or like Mizrahi Jews, or Sabra Jews, the Jews that were there before the occupation.
Hmm.
Um, it's a little different because they're closer to that region.
Hmm.
When you're talking about Ashkenazic Jews, you're mainly talking about Jews that are Eurocentric. Like my background, is mostly Ukrainian. Like, well,
Right.
it was Russian occupied at the time, but mainly the Ukraine. And you know, my great grandfather came over here to escape the pogrom that was going on in Kiev. And like because I remember that, I want that same respect for the Palestinian people.
Right.
I don't want them to go through, you know, pillaging and like all of that stuff. It's so sad.
Right.
Um,
Right.
yeah. And I'll always fight for justice. That's really what it comes down to.
Right.
Um,
Is there like within the Jewish community here? Is there like a solid? Is there a stronger? Do you notice a stronger solidarity for Palestinians, or do you notice a stronger Zionist um, forefront?
um, Within like the people that I know,
Mm.
it's pretty split actually.
Okay.
From what I know, like there are some people that are like real staunch Zionists, but and there are people that are really staunchly like pro Palestine. But with some people that I know, they are more like, like I like the fact that, we can have a land that we call home, but like, you know, but the way that the Palestinians are treated or bad, like it's more of a mixed bag it within the community. So it's kind of split in that way. But also like with non-Jews being pro-Israel or um, or the U.S. Um, really giving billions of dollars, um, to the IDF or whatever. Um, it's or like some like evangelical Christians, I think is anti-Semitic within itself to be
Yeah.
like pro-Israel in that way because they're not thinking like pro-Jewish, they're thinking like pro-Jesus.
Yeah.
They're not thinking about the Jewish people. They're just thinking about a land that Jesus came from.
Right.
Or they're thinking, well, and this is really anti-Semitic. Like they think like, and I think Trump is like a huge anti-Semite. I think he thinks like if I associate with people that are Jewish that, have a lot of money, then I can become this person too. Not every single person is rich. I'm
Yeah.
not rich.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Like I'm not rich. My parents aren't rich, and
Right.
that's anti-Semitic within itself,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know,
Trump
an
was the
interest.
first president as well to just literally try to push the Zionist narrative. Again, the
Yeah.
embassy and everything. No other president tried to like allow that thing to happen, and that made it so much worse.
Yeah.
And I think that's why the aggression. I mean, aggression has always been very bad since the 1950s, since the settlers established it. But like, it's
Yeah.
just, I feel like it's so much worse now because now you're seeing for the first time an American president uh just basically put Zionism on the pedestal. Um, but like you said, it is anti-Semitic because he's not doing that because he actually cares about Jewish people.
No.
He's doing that for his own reasons, the money, the power, you
Yeah.
know. Um, Netanyahu never got the leeway that he has been getting now since Trump, and that's
Right.
just it's fucking crazy.
Right.
Over it, and
Thank
then
you.
they gave it
Thank
to the
you.
to the Zionists, the European Zionists, and now we have this bullshit. Like,
White
thank you,
colonialism.
British,
I
thank
blame
you.
the English. Or
It's
the
always the
Romans for
goddamn
trying to
English,
disrupt the Second Temple. Like, and they're gaslighting us thinking it's like a Jewish and Arab situation when it really isn't.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's not.
It's
And
not,
it's just a
guys.
form of gaslighting.
There's Jewish Palestinians, just like how there's African Jewish people. There,
Right,
there's Christian Palestinians. There's
right,
queer Palestinians.
right,
They have many identities and faiths, just like everyone else does.
right.
So,
And they're like Arab Israelis or like Gal Gadot, like her father's side of the family were Sabras, so they were
mhm,
there for generations.
mhm,
Like and I'm not saying it was all like peaceful and happy and stuff like that in Israel, but
mhm,
like or in Palestine, right?
mhm.
But people were at least like coexisting in a way, like
Right.
You
Right.
know what I mean? So
Right.
I don't
It's
have the
very
answers.
good.
It's kind of like an onion, like anytime like there's always like a hidden layer, and when somebody tries to peel a layer, somebody cries.
Right.
Like or like tries to cut that onion, like a tear is gonna be shed.
Yeah.
It's very yeah, but I really hope because I have both Israeli and Palestinian friends. Like
Mhm.
and like I told like some of my Palestinian friends, I'm like, I'm with you guys. Like what's happening is really terrible,
Mhm.
and I want them to live coexistingly.
Yeah.
It's really what it
I have a
comes down to.
coworker. Well, Life of My Days that I worked for, they were founded by Palestinian refugees.
Right.
We have a few of them on our board. The founder, Ahmed, uh, they are non-binary as well too. They're trans, disabled, Muslim, Palestinian identified,
Right.
and you know they have opened my eyes so much to this issue that I thought,
Yeah.
I was thinking like Bernie Sanders, like two-state solution and stuff like that. But it's just, I feel like if we just acknowledge, um, if we just acknowledge the carnage and put an end to this and stop the apartheid and give everyone an equal chance and stuff, like why does it need to be a two-state when everyone could go back to how it was before the 1950s when
Yeah.
everybody had their own equal rights and stuff like that.
Yeah.
uh,
And you can have like secular Jewish whatever, but like you have to do it in favor of everybody. You know what I mean? Like it's kind
yeah,
of like a hospital, like there's some Jewish hospitals, but they'll take anybody. They're
yeah,
not going to put religion into it.
right,
It's just like that's what I'm saying. Like that's
right.
I know what it is. If things were just more secular and it wasn't about religion.
Yeah,
Now I'm
man.
like doing a John Lennon song right now, but but you know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
it's all rooted in hatred, and it's sad.
Yeah.
But hopefully, with I don't know, but hopefully with like music and just like kind of being comfortable, like going back. I know I keep going back, but like, but being
Hmm.
comfortable with ourselves and just like um, bringing out like confidence in other people and
Hmm.
like giving other people a voice.
Hmm.
I think is even more important because like when people are like I've been watching these videos of like these Karens just like freaking out, right? They're just like freaking out. Like, yes, they're entitled. Yes, they're awful. But like some of them, like, right? But some of them, like, you're just like, sweetie, I don't think you've had like any psychiatric help. Like,
Yeah.
like, are you okay? Like,
Yeah.
do you need like help? But sometimes they're just like absolutely terrible. But sometimes they become like so angry and so unhinged and so like immature. It's almost like, in a way, I almost feel bad where it's like, I don't know if you've ever had somebody like help you, you know? And, it's kind of like they're getting trapped in their own head with their own thinking and they just, burst out and
Yeah.
it's terrible.
Karens they're interesting.
Yeah.
I find it very interesting about social media and stuff like that. Uh, it's just
It's wild.
yeah, it's fucking wild. Sometimes I'm just so shocked. Like I saw a video of this lady at the Burger King was just mad that she didn't get her order, and it's literally on fire, and she's
Yeah.
yelling at the coworkers while they're outside because the place is on fire, and she's like,
Yeah.
What the hell? I just want blah blah blah."
Oh my God. And people are just like, what do you think is happening right now? They're like completely out of touch with reality. It's like I don't.
I
Oh
had
my
a
God.
bad day. Dude, do you not see this fire? We're having a bad day too.
Yeah, like I'm about to lose a job. Like my place of employment is on fire. Like it's
Yeah,
up in flames. Of course,
it's
you're not going to get
comical.
your order.
Oh hell yeah! And then the barbecue Becky, that was my favorite one.
Oh Jesus.
But it's like
Yeah.
I agree. I feel like mental health is literally like not being taken seriously with all cultures, and we need to take it more seriously, so we don't have issues like that.
Yeah.
Because God,
Or
like we
have it
don't
being
want to see
less
that.
accepted,
Yeah,
like having that type of behavior being like so sparse that like it's a shock and it's not like accepted.
right,
You know what I mean?
right.
But
Because like I could easily scapegoat it and say, well, they're just being racist, but then it's also like
I
I
mean, they
see
could be
racism
also
as a
being
mental health.
racist.
Yeah, I see racism as a mental health issue.
It
And,
is.
like hard body, like just I feel like no one that is racist is actually mentally stable.
That I agree with you 100%. I don't think anybody who's racist is like mentally stable either.
Yeah,
And people who are mentally unstable like aren't necessarily racist. Like it's
yeah, yeah.
you
It's a
know.
lot. Oh my god, I don't want to take your time up.
No, it's okay, but this
I
was
will.
really great.
Yeah,
I don't have work until like 2:45 anyway, but
yeah.
no, but this
Well,
was really great.
yeah,
Just talking about all of this and just like putting, mental health on the forefront and just like connecting everything. So this is awesome. So thank you
yeah,
so much
yeah,
for having me on here, Keith
yeah.
too. I didn't forget about him.
Definitely. you definitely you and your frogger is a friend of the show. Like
Thank
that
you.
is
I don't have a name for the frog, so if somebody who's watching this wants a name for the frog, definitely send it my way. I'm just gonna call him Peace Frog, them Peace Frog right now.
peace frog.
So
Nice,
yeah,
nice.
yeah. I'm gonna call them Peace Frog.
That's
So
dope. Aren't frogs real quick? Like aren't frogs like revered for like fertility or something like that? Like
yeah, they can have like thousands of tadpoles. It's crazy. Yeah,
what?
I don't know. Yeah, oh yeah,
It's
they
an
can have like
army.
a lot of tadpoles. Like they can have like these little, yeah,
All
yeah.
that coming out of them? How? I don't
Yeah, or maybe
understand.
like hundreds, but I could just be exaggerating. But they can have a lot. They can have more than like the a mammal can,
That's
right? So they can
wild.
have, yeah, they can like have hundreds or thousands. They can have a lot because they're like microscopic in a way. So they lay eggs. I know frogs are cool, and a group of frogs is actually called an army. I don't know if you knew that,
Oh
but
really? Oh
yeah,
wow.
an
Well, I
army
have
of
a
frogs is
turtle,
called an army.
and that turtle is its own army. Like
Yeah,
the cats
yeah.
be looking at the turtle like, what is that? I'm scared. What
Yes, they should be
my
scared.
cat Ben literally like swatted at it yesterday just to see what it was going to do, and then the turtle just looked at him and then walked away. And
I
then,
love it. I love
and then the cat was
it.
like so confused, like, all right, I'm just gonna mind my business. Then clearly I ain't shit. Like,
Well, they're afraid of cucumbers on the ground, so I don't know. I don't know. Or like pickles, there's nothing to fear about pickles, but here we
yeah,
are. You
pickles
know.
are delicious. Oh my
I
god.
love it. Thank you. Thank you. I think yes. Yes, pickles are delicious. I know people that don't like pickles. They like pickled everything else, but not pickles. I'm like,
Yeah,
why? I
it
don't
took
know.
me a while to like him, but now I love them. They're
Oh,
good.
they're
I can eat
perfect.
pickle all day.
They're chef's kiss. They're wonderful.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, Liz. Well, let me let you go because I gotta
All
do
right.
some
Sorry,
work
I hope I
stuff
didn't
too.
take up your time either. But
Oh no, 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 no.
yeah,
I think what took up the most time was just our internet connections and stuff at first. But
yeah, yeah.
so
Sorry
I
about
just got to go and
that.
edit this. Everybody that's watching this live, I mean, you're going to see this version, but I'm going to release a different version
Okay,
within the next 30 minutes that is condensed down.
awesome. Okay,
So no one has to
awesome.
go through all that lag because that lag went on for about a good 10 minutes or
Ooh,
12 minutes, something like that.
yeah. I'm not gonna be up there anymore. As
Yeah.
cool as that setup is, I'm not gonna do that anymore.
That's not going to sound great on Spotify at all. So I got to fix that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
All
thank
right,
you so
Liz.
much.
Yeah,
It was
definitely.
so great
Let's
to
do this
talk to
again.
you.
It's good to see you again. Actually,
Oh,
we
good
don't
to see
hang
you
out as
too,
much.
Jamar.
We got to hang out more. I know
Yes, I
Fairfield and New
agree.
York
And do more
are opposite
music.
directions. Oh
Uh,
yes. Why haven't we did a show yet? We should be doing shows together. Like we got to fix that.
yes, for sure.
We got to headline together. We got to do some shit.
Yes, that'd be awesome.
Oh yeah. Oh wait, give me send me a link to your music too. if you got
Okay.
anything that you want to show off to people and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
I have like my Facebook and my Instagram
Yeah.
on there. Like I'm in the process of recording right now. That's one of like, in my headspace, right? But
Yeah.
I do have links to my Facebook and like YouTube and stuff like that. So I'll definitely send that over.
All right. All right, Liz. Well, have a good day. I'll see you
Thank you.
later.
All
And
right, much love,
everybody else,
Jamar.
have a good day. Much love. See you
Thank you.
later.
You too.
Bye.
All right, bye.
Collectively transforming community, peace in our human family, volume of unity, divine light shining individually, collectively transforming community, peace in our human family.
One love, one growth, as above, so below. Feel the pain in my soul, the red pill dissolved. Organized, no matter the cost. Politicians start wars, they don't fight, they sit the poor. And nothing lasts forever as long as we stay together. Give hell to the masses, watch the unity rapture. This is for the kids and the culture.